Yesterday was the Feast of All Saints, but we have transferred it to today so we can celebrate it together with this beautiful family who we're going to baptize in just a minute. Today is actually the Feast of All Souls, which we have transferred to Wednesday. And we're going to have a Requiem Mass, and I hope that you will come. It's 7 o'clock on Wednesday night, where we will hear beautiful music prepared by the choir, a stirring sermon, I'm quite sure. And we will give thanks for all of those who have gone on to the greater life. So you got to kind of keep up if we're going to keep moving these things around. When you do this, when we have a feast like All Saints that hits on a Sunday, we drop out of the normal run for the lectionary. So we stopped following the patterns that we've been in, and we're just given texts that point to this theme of the day. And today we were given a huge part of the book of the Ephesians, the letter to the Ephesians. And I think it might be interesting to spend just 2 or 3 minutes trying to get a summary of what's going on in the letter to the Ephesians and see how it connects to the baptism that we're about to do. So the letter to the Ephesians, it's historically was known as the letter of Paul to the Ephesians because it says so right there at the beginning. You know, Paul. So it's fair enough to say that Paul wrote it. But it is kind of the mind of most historical biblical scholars that Ephesians is not one of the undisputed letters of Paul. And there's several reasons. First of all, don't freak out. It's not blasphemy to say this. It was a normal thing for disciples in the day to write something and put their teacher's name on it. It was a code of honor. You would get kicked out of the university for plagiarism now. So I know that's very different than it was then. But this is not an unusual thing. And it's also because the writing style is so wildly different than in the undisputed letters of Paul. And one big thing is missing. This urgency that's in the undisputed letters of Paul to get the word out about Jesus as quickly as possible to as many people as possible, because Jesus is coming back tomorrow. That's sort of the energy that is in the undisputed letters. So Paul doesn't have a whole lot of use talking about how you should engage the secular authorities, and he doesn't have much to say about how you should structure your family, because he really is interested in getting everybody to know about the love of Jesus quickly. This letter, however, we think perhaps was written a full generation later, and it is that urgency about this certainty about the return of Jesus is missing, because the church has now gone a full generation and Jesus has not returned. And so they're trying to figure out now what does our life look like? And so this letter kind of settles in on some things. It has things to say about how to structure a Christian household, and it has things to say about how Christians are to engage the secular authorities. And that's not in any of the other letters of Paul. So let's see what the writer is trying to do. The first chapter that we heard a large portion of this morning, it draws this big cosmic picture of what God is doing in the world, about how God is redeeming the world. God is bringing all of creation back into right relationship with God. And it's huge, and it speaks of powers and principalities, that God is authority over all of those things. And God is drawing it all back. And the believer is destined for adoption. So there is a particular place that this cosmic work that God is doing, those of us who claim Christ as Lord are destined for adoption. So brought into the family of God. Right? So that's the first thing it does. And then it spends about 3 chapters talking about the character traits of a church that knows it's under this cosmic, in the part of this cosmic plan. And it's the church, and the primary phrase that we see when he's talking about, the writer is talking about this, is rooted and grounded in love. So the primary character trait of a church that is part of the cosmic redemptive work of God is that it is rooted and grounded in love. It is rooted and grounded in humility, it says. Rooted and grounded in love, generosity, humility, kindness, patience, forgiveness. These are the marks This is the way the world outside the church will know that you are in fact part of this cosmic work, is if the church you build looks like that. And so it's sort of a prescription of what the church should look like in the first century, and it feels to me like a really good prescription of what the church should look like in the 21st century. Yes? I could see, and I'm proud to say, I feel like St. David's is very much that kind of place. That the world outside knows that this is a place where they are loved and cared for and welcome, and there's humility and kindness and love, rooted and grounded in love. Then we get to the most controversial parts of the book of Ephesians. It's the 5th chapter, where Paul starts talking about how where the writer starts talking about how you should structure your family. Now, the other character trait about this letter is it goes back into very traditional understandings of their time of how you should engage both family and secular authority. Let's just say the word submit is all over the place, right? There's a whole lot of submission in this part, and it kind of makes people chafe, reasonably so. Because when it says, men will be submissive to God and wives submissive to their husbands, we might just sort of stop listening at this point, right? Matter of fact, we might just stop listening. We might stand up and have something to say, and reasonably so. So I think the way we handle this is we say this is the standard way in which families were structured in the first century. And most of us choose not to structure them this way now, because we've seen a whole lot of abuse and a whole lot of pain and a whole lot of sadness that comes from that. Because there's that first sentence is forgotten. The first sentence in chapter 5 is, submit to one another. But I think we don't really want to throw that one out, do we? Submit to one another. What happens in your household if everybody is submitting to one another, right? Instead of me fighting for my needs and fighting for all the things that I want and you fighting for the things that you want, what if I am really tuned into your needs and you're really tuned into mine? And all of a sudden we end up with, you remember the cartoon when I was a kid, the Chip and Dale? The little chipmunks who were so deferential to one another, no, after you. No, I insist, after you. No, remember that? It's this mutual submission, right, where we're submitting my needs to the well-being of the body, of the family, and everyone else is paying attention to mine too. So that works pretty well, doesn't it, if we think of it that way? So leave that where you like, make what you will of the 5th chapter. And then it concludes by saying, 6th chapter concludes by saying that because we're part of this cosmic thing that God is doing in the world, and that we as believers are destined to adoption, we are rooted and grounded in love. We build a church that is based in love. We build families that are based in love and mutual submission. Then the believer is prepared to face the world outside. Prepared to use the word armor, to go out into the world. And to bear what? Not arms, but to bear love. All the things that we've just been talking about. This is what we carry out into the world. Now, this is a thing that I've noticed this week that I think is kind of interesting, and I don't think it's by design at all, but it is remarkable to me that this outline of the letter to the Ephesians is very similar to the outline of the baptismal covenant. So what you'll see in just a minute, when we move to the baptism, we're going to start this way. We're going to start by presenting someone who wants to be grafted in, adopted into the family of God. And then we're going to claim the big cosmic thing that God is doing. We're going to declare what we believe is true in the words of the Apostles' Creed, right? And then we are going to renounce Satan, and then we'll accept Christ. And then there are 5 promises that are made that says because this cosmic thing is true, and because Emma is going to be grafted into this family of God, this body, this is what we think that looks like. Here are the 5 things that we think you need to be paying attention to as you live out your baptismal covenant in the world. And then you as the church will actually tell Emma what her job is. you will graft her in and say, this is who you are. We welcome you. Now this is who you are called to be. And then Emma is equipped. She's equipped because she's in this community of love. She's in a family of love. She is being equipped to live her life out in the world. And so that she too then can go and show the world the love of God. Show the world through her own life this cosmic thing that God is doing. This desire that God has to graft everyone into the family of God. That is huge. And we're going to do that right now.